think we did not have enough time to think through the mechanism of achieving that. And when I was in Sharia House, I went to the Supreme Court on an advisory opinion as Attorney General to seek the guidance of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court itself, other than saying that we could do it past the immediate election, after the immediate election that we were facing, the Supreme Court was not able to give us a guidance as to how. And we drafted several bills. I remember drafting 3 bills on implementation. I can't remember any of them that was ever read in the House for debate, because we couldn't even raise the constitutional amendment quorum. This remains an unhappy part of our constitutional experience. And I think it is a matter that requires us to find a solution. There are many ways to find a solution to this, but I think that the easiest for me would be to send back the problem to the political parties themselves, so that we make the business of nominating women a business of the parties, as opposed to a business that should worry the National Assembly or the electoral body. We can come back to this question of gender at a later stage, but I think it is one of the glaring areas where we have not been able to function as we had wanted. The second area, I think, is devolution. I think devolution, we have been so successful that we are victims of our own success in that regard. I think we swung from a situation where power, and I mean both political power and financial power, were located at the center, to a position where power has gone back to the counties without sufficient safeguards. For the management of that power, particularly financial power. And one of the, obviously, devolution has been so successful in allowing people to make decisions at the county level as to what their priorities are. But at the same time, it has located finances at the county level in a manner where much of the finance, much of the funds are used for non-development purposes. They are used to run bureaucracies, and therefore what we have succeeded in doing is translocating bureaucracies from Nairobi to the counties, so that the full promise of devolution, which was capital development and human resource development and so on, has not been achieved. I think that is an area where we may need to rethink the structure, the model. I myself have been a great supporter of devolving further, not devolving the bureaucracy, but devolving further the responsibility for governing the townships and the other units. And which is also a way of keeping the governors accountable at another level. And we can discuss that later. The other theme that I think deserves attention is the theme of the distribution of responsibilities between the counties and the national government. And I don't want to give solutions, but I just want to tease out the problem so that we may think about the problem. When you look at education, education remained a national mandate, and all of us can assess the success there. Health, on the other hand, did not. And we need to ask ourselves whether, when we compare health with education, the level of management, the technical level of management is the same. And I'm not sure I have the right answer myself, but I think it does require us to rethink that. The other issue that I think would require a revisit is constitutional commissions. This is a very, very sensitive matter, but it is a very critical matter, because it is quite clear that the thinking behind the creation of constitutional commissions was, and that when we thought that there was a branch of government or an institution of government that was not functioning at optimum capacity, we then created a commission around it. If you have a Ministry of Education that should be running education in Kenya from primary school to university, if we thought that the ministry wasn't functioning, then we created a commission for education. Okay? Now, and that is replicated 1,000 times. If you thought that we had a Ministry of Justice that should be concerned about how citizens access justice, and not only in the courts, but in an administrative sense, if we thought the Ministry of Justice wasn't functioning, we created an ombudsman. Yeah? And so on and so forth. And I personally believe that we have too many layers of government that has made government extremely expensive to manage. And again, I can give the example of, say, this question we started with, the question of women and gender, a very critical question. But we have a ministry that is involved, that is concerned with gender, but then we have a gender commission. We have a Ministry of Lands that should function ideally, that should function at an optimum capacity, managing land in Kenya. But we went and created a land commission, and so on and so forth. And in fact, where we don't have constitutional commissions, we have level 2 commissions created by Parliament itself across many other areas, you know. And to my mind, what that has done is that it has reduced the pressure on us to make government efficient. The Ministry of Lands should be efficient on its own. But because we have a land commission, we have allowed the Ministry of Lands to survive. So, and I think this is repeated across the board. And one of the things I want to remind members is that Parliament actually, to its great credit, Parliament did an economic audit, a financial audit of the Constitution. I don't remember whether that report was widely distributed. I think it's called the Mutava report. The Honorable Mutava was the chair.
Yes.
I would recommend that members revisit that report as you prepare your next report, because it does audit the cost of managing this constitution, and it is quite clear that we created a bureaucracy that is very, very, very big. In fact, in an area where I spend a bit of my time, the judiciary, for example, it is the stated aim of the judiciary to have a high court in every county. I can tell you for free that there is no need for a high court in every county. A high court is a very, very senior judicial body. And there are very, very few matters that need to be taken to the high court. A chief magistrate's court is a very, very senior court, and it is enough that we have a chief magistrate's court in every county and a high court available within reach, within not a very now, so that what is beginning to happen therefore is that we have courts that don't have work. So we appoint judges, we then assign them to a court in a county where in that county there aren't enough cases to keep the judge busy. Now this was made worse, and that's why I said earlier that between Bomas and Naivasha, things happened to the Constitution that were well-intentioned but had the effect of creating some distortion. For example, in the old days, we had a high court, and the high court judge had the mandate, the jurisdiction, to hear any matter, from a labor matter, to a land matter, to a criminal matter, to a civil matter, to a commercial matter, to an appeal. When we did the final draft, we divided the High Court of Kenya into divisions. Now you have a land division, an employment division, etc., 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 etc. What then that means is, if I am a judge in Malindi Court, in the Environment Court, I cannot take a murder plea because I'm not a criminal law judge. Which then means that when my colleague is on leave, prisoners continue to suffer, yet there is a judge in station. And you can multiply that 1,000 times. If you have a labor matter, it cannot be heard by the land court or the commercial court and so on. In my view, it was a terrible mistake, given our experience here. A judge should have been a judge, should have been a judge. And indeed, that is what happens when we promote judges from the High Court to the Court of Appeal. There, in the Court of Appeal, a judge hears all matters. So this artificial distinction did not create efficiencies. It did not create efficiencies. In fact, it dissipated our energies in a manner that is not serious. So what has happened? In practice, in my view, we have had to hire more judges than we actually need on the ground, because of that division of responsibilities.